Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Medium's World. I am your host, Bonnie Worth, and of course, joining me tonight for a spotlight interview, I have Sunny Dawn Johnson. Sunny Dawn Johnson is a professional psychic medium. She's been working in the industry for so many years. She is a published author. She is like 20, 22 or 23 books. I might even be off on the number of books that she has published. Her impact that she has in bridging between worlds, between loved ones on the other side, the angels, the divine, has truly is an inspiration for so many, as well as myself. In fact, I'm not even sure that Sunny is aware of this, but in we had actually back in 20. I think it was in 2015, I had her come to be a guest at a retreat that I was facilitating in Sedona. And it was probably 2 years prior to that I got introduced to her work. But watching her, observing her, listening to her, seeing how she was showing up in the world was the absolute permission card for me to follow and to begin to step forward as well. So she's incredibly inspiring. I know that I'm not the only one who's been impacted by her work and her presence. And so here tonight, I'm so grateful to have Sunny Dawn Johnson joining for this conversation. Hello, Sunny.
Hello, my friend. Thank you so much. Appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Happy to be
Oh
here
my
with
gosh.
everybody.
Yeah. Can you believe it's been like 2015 is when we first
No,
met?
actually, when you said that, I'm like, wow, I'm getting older and I don't think I am. So when people say that, I'm like, oh, okay, that was just 9 years ago, whatever.
9 years ago, exactly.
Wow.
I know, so phenomenal. I'm amazed and at just how, we have kind of coalesced over the years. And again, just witnessing and just I'm so grateful for people like you in the world who have really been clearing the path for so many of us individuals. And so, Sunny, I'm really, of course, I want people to get to know you. Not only do they, of course, so many people know you as a keynote speaker. You're an author, a writer for Women's Day. You are doing this work in a very big and phenomenal way and have been for many, many years. So I'm just curious as to how did this all come to be for you? Was this something, your connection with the non-physical world and all these beautiful angels and loved ones, was this something that was a part of your world from the time you were little, or is it something that came about later on in life for you?
Well, I was 13 is when I was consciously aware of the support of the spirit world. I'd had experiences that I didn't understand. I just thought they were normal and everybody had them when I was younger than that. But when I was 13, I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I saw my guardian angel above my bed. And I didn't actually even believe in angels. So I was like, I don't know what this is and why there's this thing floating in front of me. But I knew how safe and how loving the energy felt. So even though my head was like, what is that? My spirit, my heart were like, and so that actually is what opened me up, that experience. Afterwards, I told my mom and she told me that that was my guardian angel. And I told her, I don't think I have one of those because if I had a guardian angel, then nothing would ever suck in my life. And at 13, everything sucked. Right.
Right.
Um, so it was really it was a very life-changing event because it didn't make me believe that there were angels that immediate time, but what it did is it got me curious. And that curiosity of, well, what else do I not see? And me asking those questions invoked more presence. And so very shortly after that, within a few months, I actually started seeing deceased energies. I knew we had a ghost that lived in our house, a spirit that was a female spirit that had actually died in the house. And I knew that. I felt her. My brother felt her. We saw her. So I was aware of that, but I hadn't had any really personal experiences. And so I was 13 years old. I was hanging out with my friend. Her grandfather had died a couple of weeks earlier. And I said, oh, your grandfather's right next to you. She's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, he's just standing right by you. And she goes, Sonny, he died 2 weeks ago. I said, I know. Isn't that cool? Well, she didn't think it was cool. Not
Right.
cool. Now, I was raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. None of that was cool. Okay. So that was kind of the first real experience of like, oh, this is here. And then me sharing it and then me realizing, yeah, don't ever share it again.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what I learned from that is don't say anything. Don't let anybody know. Don't share this stuff because it's not okay.
Right. And I think so many mediums go through that. I know I certainly did. My grandfather shut me down the moment I tried to give him, I think I was at the tender age of 12 or 13 years old at the time as well. And when I was sharing with him that my grandmother was standing right next to him and she was letting him know that she was okay and she was healthy and I was being, and he looked at me and he said to me, "Don't you ever say anything so ridiculous to me ever again." And he just pushed me away. And that really shuts you down. That was, I think, the first time that I realized that not everybody played in the world in this way. Like this was something bad or wrong, and it was not safe to bring it into the world. I mean, I'm so grateful. I mean, again, I started off saying at the start of things because you are someone who has brought it forward in a very big and bold way over all of these years, and it really just standing in your truth and being who you are is just, I mean, of course, creating such a light and ripple effect for so many other people. When did you decide that you felt like you needed to do this work professionally? Like, what was the turning point for you?
That's a great question. I think that I don't think I decided.
I
You know,
understand that.
yeah, what happened was, so I had those experiences, and for 15 years, I did the back and forth thing. I'm like, oh, this is cool. No, I don't want to do this. Oh, this is cool. I don't, and I did that because I had this push and pull because really the part of me that I was so in tune with at that time, which was my physical realm, I just wanted to be normal.
Yeah.
I want to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be weird. I didn't want to be the weird girl. I didn't want to be the one that people were looking at and going, what's going on? I didn't want to be the one that was teased and bullied and all the things. And so I really just wanted to be normal. And even though, in my teens, I had miraculous experiences with the angelic realm and I had amazing experiences with deceased energies, I didn't really open up to mediumship even after I'd started my business.
Wow.
So 28 is when at the age of 28 is when I'm like, all right, I got a lot of signs from spirit. It's time to do this work. My deceased grandmother and my deceased mother-in-law both came to me. And I think kind of forced me into doing this work. But when I started doing it, I was doing readings and I was doing classes and teaching about angels. And anytime that mediumship came up, I just told them, nope, not doing it. Nope, not doing it. I know you got a message. I'm not the one. Go talk to somebody else. And the reason for that was, and I think this is true for a lot of mediums, and I'm sure some of you can relate. I was a clairsentient person. I felt
Yes.
all the feelings.
Yeah.
And so I knew that if I was going to do mediumship, it was going to be death, which meant it was going to be sad, which meant I was going to feel it, which meant
Yes.
don't do it. Right. So that was my way of protecting myself. And so I would do readings, the deceased people would show up and I'd push them away, and they'd show up and I'd push them away. And I'd be like, nope, nope, nope. And that happened for a couple of years. And then I'll tell you the story because it's actually a really powerful story that I think is really symbolic for a lot of us that do this work. Is I didn't want to do it. I didn't step into it. I pushed and pushed and pushed against it. But I had an experience when I was about 31, I think. I had stepped into the business. I was doing readings, and I had this brilliant idea to do psychic readings at the Arizona State Fair.
Wow.
It was not brilliant, but in my mind, it was really
It was
brilliant.
a great idea.
It was
Yes.
a great idea. So 21 days, 12 to 14 hours a day.
Oh my gosh.
Not brilliant, but I thought,
No.
okay, you know what? There's nobody has ever done this. Like nobody does readings here. So I had to go through and I had to get approved and I had to prove myself. I had to do all these things. And remember, this wasn't recent. This was 23 years ago. So this was on the verge. Nobody talked about this. This was still like way in the closet and way woo-woo. But I was like, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to like change the world with this. Right. So didn't actually happen that way, but so I started doing those readings. And after about 5 or 6 days into it, I realized how long 12 or 14 hours sitting at a fair every single day is. But I had an experience, and I'm going to be 100% honest of how it happened, because it doesn't put me in the best light, honestly. But this was the turning point. I was sitting at my booth, and it was the middle of the day during the week, and this man was walking down the aisle, and I saw him, and I looked at him, and I knew he was coming for me. I just knew it. And he was very, and this is very judgmental, but he was very hard looking. Like, you could tell he'd had a very rough life. You could tell that he likely struggled with lots of addiction. He just was worn, right? And so he came, and I'm like, I picked up my book like this, like I'm hiding, like I don't want to read this guy. I tried to ignore him, and he came up, and he came straight for me, and he looked at my sign, and he flipped the chair around. He sat down. He's like, read me. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh God. And I'm cussing out my angels, like, I don't want to do this. And so I'm like, all right. So sat with him, started doing the regular intuitive reading. And then, of course, deceased energies came around, and I'm like, nope, don't do this. Nope, not interested. Nope, I'm not listening to you. This little boy came. The little boy was 4 years old, and his name was Christopher. And he said, I'm Christopher. And I said, sorry, buddy. Sorry, wrong person. You need to go somewhere else. I'm not doing this part. And I especially was like that because it was a 4-year-old. So I knew this is not going to be positive, right? So I kept ignoring him and trying to do the reading, and he was jumping up and down. He's like trying to get my attention. And I'm like, honey, I'm sorry. I can't. I just can't. So I'm telepathically talking to him, as you guys know how that is. We're talking, right?
Right. Yes.
And finally, after like 10 minutes of him jumping around, he says, well, just tell my dad it's not his fault. And I'm like, oh my God. So I said to the man, because then I'm like, okay, I have to say that. So I told him, I said, I have a little boy, his name's Christopher. And when I said that, the guy's eyes just lit up, and then they just poured tears. Mm-hmm. And I said, he tells me to tell you it's not his fault. And he just starts bawling. Then I'm bawling. We're all bawling. And what happened afterwards was really what changed the whole thing. As this little boy, after he told his dad to tell him it wasn't his fault, he showed me what happened. And for me, and I know a lot of mediums are this way, I feel all the ways people die in my body.
Yeah.
And it's just part of the gift. And so as he walked me through what had happened to him, for people that live in Arizona, they know this story because it was I didn't know it at the time, but it was a huge news story about 2 years earlier, because I don't watch the news. So this little boy's mother took him out to the desert, told him he was going to see Santa Claus. It was in December. Told him he was going to see Santa Claus. 2 of her friends went with her, and she had him shot in the back and killed. And the reason that she did that was because he reminded her of his dad, her ex. Oh. And the dad was in prison at the time for drugs. And so he felt like it was his fault, like if he would have been there. And I don't even know if he knows that the reason she did it was because she reminded, I don't know if that was a piece of I didn't say that, but I don't know if that was part, but he showed me that whole thing. And so I talked to the dad, and I told him and relayed to him that he's okay and he's fine. And he just came here actually to be a light for him and to be a guide for him from the spirit world, because he was going to need guidance out of his addiction. And that's why this little soul came. And it was only supposed to be a short trip and all the things. And I watched that man over it was supposed to be 20 minutes, but hour that we sat there, go from that person that was like heavy, dense, like, oh my God, don't sit down at my table, just poured out his soul and his pain, and stand up and leave somebody else. And I was so emotional. Like, I actually just closed my booth and I went to the bathroom and puked because I had carried all that energy. And it was so hard watching what happened, because I saw it, like the whole thing, and felt it. But afterwards, as I was I was trying to drive home, my spirit said to me these exact words, because I wouldn't do mediumship. And they said, what right do you have to hold the healing from people that you can serve in this way at this time. Because you are here to do this work, and you holding it from people is selfish. And I was like, well, you're right. Okay. And that was the day.
Wow, Sunny. So I am incredibly emotional just hearing this story. I've had those experiences too that, where the transformation that takes place, the brokenness of someone from a loss to see and to, witness them through a reading and through the messages that they receive completely get their life back and have that enormity of healing is just, it's such a profound thing to experience. And I believe it's such a privilege to sit in that place and to witness that and be a part of that healing that transpires. And I love that. I love this. I love what you said, because this is so healing, and regardless of the judgments, regardless of people's belief systems of whether they believe it's possible or not, this has nothing to do about anyone else. This is looking at this is a sacred, and I want to say almost like a ordained, almost being ordained in doing this work, such holy work, to be able to help and to bridge the physical and non-physical worlds, to bring in these healing messages. And why would we hold that? Why would we hang on to it? Why would we worry about other people when there's something bigger that's being called and asked of us?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and I think that, the truth of the matter is, the reason that we worry about it is because, at least for me, 25 years ago, the TV show Medium wasn't out. There weren't people going to James Van Praagh, and it wasn't announced out in the world. And there weren't shows of paranormal, like none of that existed then. And so back then it was, I don't want to be persecuted. Like I've already been hung, right? Like I don't want to go that route again. And I think that fear was very real. And it wasn't even so much about me. What I was protective for my kids, right? Like I don't want their friends at school. I don't want the parents to be picking on them, those kinds of things. And really, I've always been different. My life always has taken turns that are not traditional. And so finally, when that happened and I stepped into that, I got more and more and more messages about, listen, you're not meant to be traditional. You're meant to actually break systems down, not support systems that aren't working. And this is a system that, in the ideology of a lot of people, is not working. Like, okay, it's evil or it's the devil or those kinds of things. But then how many people that are religious come to me like, okay, but now it's different because now it's me. Right. And we all know that. All of us that have done readings, you're like, okay, yeah. Here. So people come and they're like, you know what, I don't know where else to go, but I'm devastated, or I just need to know there's something more or something real. And so we know that, on our side of it, it can be fear, but on the other side of it, the reason that people push against it is because of fear also. So if we let go of the fear, we can all have healing.
yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh, right? So true. And I was exactly the same. Like for me coming out and starting this work, there was big considerations of the impact. I wasn't, like as you said, not worried about the greater or larger people and community, but was more concerned about my children. How was this going to affect them? I didn't want them to be bullied. I didn't want them to be ostracized. I was afraid of what could happen, the loss of friendships or what that could mean for them. And so I think in some way that actually prevented me as well for a couple of years of really becoming more and more public over this as well. And you're right, it is the fear. There's fear on both sides of the equation. There is such a fear-based consciousness that surrounds mediumship. And again, looking back, like you said, 25, 23 years ago, this was, it still to some level is today.
Yeah.
We haven't cleared the way totally, but at that time there was a lot of volatile things happening against mediums. That was so, I hear stories, of just things that were being done to people who were just trying to help. They were just trying their best to, help to bridge and to bring the healing through. So as I said a couple nights ago on one of the parts of this series, I said, I am so grateful for the mediums who came before me because, like you and so many before, they cleared the pathway. They begin to create this opportunity for us to begin to step forward and step forward and step forward. It's the ultimate of permission. So I honor everyone who has come before, and just, my greatest prayer is that, here we are now, and that we're really creating an opening, a vast opening of possibility for mediums, and coming forward after. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to,
Absolutely.
I just want to, I'm going to say, what, this is such a wild question to ask you, but again, I know from myself that my own personal well-being has grown exponentially, or has come into a place of not only just emotional wholeness, but my health, my well-being, everything has just increased in terms of wellness as a result of coming forward and opening up to the spirit world and doing this work. Like, there are so many great benefits, yes, for the people who are receiving the messages and the healing, but we too as mediums receive at the same time. Have you noticed that in your own life? Has it really transformed for you?
I think that I think there's two answers to that. Yes and no. I think initially I would say no. I would say that me trying to hide, me ignoring and denying a big part of who I am. I think that even when I first stepped into it, me learning how to manage my energy, to be able to be the observer and not the absorber, to not take on the pain and the physical pain for days and weeks, that really affected my health. And I think it got worse and worse because I needed to learn how to be able to be the observer, how to be a witness to the trauma and the pain and the loss, and not absorb it and kind of suck it all up and take it in. And so initially, I think actually my experience physically and emotionally was actually worse, which is what scared me more. So then I pushed it away more, right? So I think that was what happened. But when I got clarity with that little boy, I also kind of sent a prayer to Archangel Michael specifically. And I said, listen, dude, all right, I get it. I understand. I hear it. I know. Okay. And I cannot do this work if I am always taking on energy. I can't do it. Like, I won't be able to function. And so as the physical vessel here, that's going to be the telephone between here and there, I have to either learn some tools, do better. Like, I have to figure something out to be able to manage my energy. And then I was given and got more consistent with greater tools that helped me to be the observer. And from there, then yes, I would say I was able to be authentic. And I hadn't truly been able to be authentic probably ever in my life. And so when I kind of threw the closet door open and said, you know what? Okay, TV is gonna know, internet's gonna, like, everybody's gonna know, and I'm settled with that, and I've got my tools, and I can be the observer, and I'm not taking on energy as much because there's still times. Now I can be free. I can be more connected to my spirit and my body. Integrate the two. And then I think, yes, I think that's true. But certainly, initially, I went through a long period of time where it was really a struggle, which is why I do so much of the work I do, and coming on things like this and just sharing as much freely as I can, because I know people go through that, and it's hard.
It absolutely is hard, and thank you for sharing that. And I noticed that for myself. This is even before I realized the invitations that were waiting for me as a medium in doing this work. But that I would say that my most depressed time in my life, the physical ailments, everything that I was going through, was exactly as you said, because it was in the absorption of all of these energies that I was mentally, emotionally, and physically not well. I mean, I had my own stuff, my physical life, my own experiences that were a part of it, but this almost exasperated or compounded it in a symptomatic way. So it is about exactly as you did. I love that I did the same thing too. I'm like, okay, I always call him Mikey. Archangel Michael. Okay, Mikey, let's go. We need to figure this out. I need some help here because again, it was so detrimental in terms of my wellness. And I know that now that I've got the tools and now that I can, witness what's going on instead of participating in what's going on, then, like I said, I've no greater joy and greater well-being as a result. But I really love that you shared that because there is two sides to that equation, that there is this in every single medium out there, I know suffers so much because of what they go through until they understand that they have help, support, and that there are tools available to navigate that.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
especially if you're doing any kind of um of physical mediumship where you're actually bringing that energy in, then it's even more critical to be so aware and mindful of that energy that's channeling through you so that you don't take any of that or keep any of that energy. So it's almost like there's a vessel of energy you're losing, and you really have to be super aware, super
Mhm.
aware.
Agreed, agreed. And I'm too, I'm highly clairsentient. And so for me too, I can feel things in my body as far as how someone would cross. And I found when I do group readings, especially, prior to understanding, and even still significantly, there's still time. But the next day after a group reading, after having almost every kind of death experience, my physical body needed to recover because the cells of my body, the information traveling through my body was telling my body it had those death experiences.
Exactly.
And right. And so self-care, self-care, self-care is such an important piece of doing this work. I think that, we mediums to understand that we are the most important element, so to speak, in being able to do this. And so the more that we feel called to serve, the more that we have to take care of ourselves.
You got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to just ask you, I mean, our time goes by so incredibly fast. But how did people around you respond to you coming forward and doing this work? Now, you mentioned earlier, you're someone here that, again, so fortunate where your mom was like, oh, that's your guardian angel that's appearing to you. You had people around you that were open and supportive and understood that. But what was that like coming forward? Like, what were the biggest challenges that you had in, or responses of other people that played out for
Well,
you?
so when that initially happened, I had my mother who was very open. She was very supportive. My dad was just kind of whatever. But I was raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. So my environment, the community, not supportive at all. Actually more questioning, like maybe she's crazy. What's wrong with her? Why is she making this up? Like all of those kinds of things. Um, then when I got into my, late teens, I really kind of, I had a baby as a teenager. And so I was distracted. And so I didn't pay a lot of attention outside of when I had like life and death, near death experiences, which I did. Then when I got into my 20s, I think is when, I got married at 22, and then, started having babies, losing babies. I lost 3 babies. So I was struggling with a lot of my own human stuff at the time.
Yes.
And I think that I didn't share a lot because I was so used to being closeted in that way that it wasn't something I really communicated about. And it wasn't until when I was 28 and my mother-in-law died, I was with her when she died, and my grandmother died very tragically. When those two people died within 6 months of each other, that's when, I kind of said, and they did haunt me from the other side to make me do this work. I'm just saying. But that's kind of when I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to tell, like, people are going to have to know. And, the first one, my husband knew I was into that kind of stuff, and he knew that I had experiences and things like that, but he didn't know. And he didn't know to the level that it was. So we'd been married maybe 6 years at that point, and my son was 9 and my other son was 1 when this experience happened, when I was with my mother-in-law when she died, which actually was literally the shift of energy as she died went through my body and I was a different person. Like there was so many things. It's like, there's no more bullshit, basically, no more pretending. And so when I came home and I shared these things with him, and my husband is agnostic, so could border atheism, but
Right.
got a little, like, he understands enough to know that there's something going on because she's got something going on and he knows that. So bringing those things to him was actually really hard because I was super appreciative. I'd been a single mom for a few years and had a really hard time during that time of my life. So I was super appreciative and grateful for the relationship and all those things. And it felt so vulnerable. It felt so like I was opening up this part that nobody had ever really accepted. And then I was doing it with someone who didn't believe in anything. And so it was really challenging. And for several years, I think he thought it would just go away. Like, oh, she's going through a phase, but eventually what happened is that after he started hearing and seeing the people line up and the classes and, the events and the TV shows and all the things, he was like, okay, this isn't going away. And so then I think it got more comfortable for me and more comfortable for him to be two people that are very, very different and have different beliefs, which is hard for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people that are watching probably have people like this in their lives. And I do it every single day, right? But what I kind of came to, and this might be helpful, and Bonnie, maybe you experience some of this, is especially with my husband, is it gave us both the opportunity to truly love unconditionally. Like, you're not the same as me. You don't think the same. It's easy to love people that are like us, right? It's harder to love people that are like, wait, you're not like, you don't see things, you don't see the world this way. So I think in that situation, now with my extended family, they were all like, okay, she's nuts. And most of them still are to this day. And I'm okay with that. But I would get hate mail. Like, I did a lot of local events. I did a lot of local TV. I would get hate mail. Like, I hope they don't allow children in your events because you're the devil that's trying to direct people to his ways and things like that. And those things would shake me up. But I got to a place where I realized that if there's some people that are getting shaken up, they're afraid. It's just fear. And as long as I looked at it that and didn't look at it like there's something wrong with me, that it's just fear, then I could really separate from it and recognize that people just are where they are. And whether they were family or friends or whoever they were, it wasn't actually going to change what's happening for me. And so I didn't give it a lot of energy, which wasn't easy.
And it's not easy. And thank you so much. And again, I think too, my husband, I think it's so similar in storylines too. He didn't know, he had never heard of this before. He didn't understand it. He wasn't aware of what was, until we had experiences when we had kids in our home. Kids, we have 3 children. So by the time we had our kids and there were things happening and my children were sensitive to some of the things that were going on, it wasn't until he witnessed the effect that it was having on them that he said, you need to explain to me what's going on. You need to tell me more about this, because up until that point, he still says to this day, he would never, ever have believed me that it was possible had he not witnessed some of the things that played out through our children. And so, part of that, but it's this unconditional acceptance. It's like to know that we don't all have to believe the exact same thing, but we can respect each other enough in order to allow for those differences and just, I would say just sharing and being open and honest. And I think that too, that authenticity that comes forward makes such a big, big difference. And so I know that, having the support of people, one of the things that's a big fear for a lot of mediums, they're worried about what other people are going to think, what's going to happen. They're going to lose some of, people close to them. And the reality is I did have some friends fall away. Truth. That's the truth.
You are going to lose people.
Yes, you will absolutely lose people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you
It's the
know?
truth. And those aren't your people.
Right. Exactly. They're not your people. Right. And so you just, again, this becomes focusing on the people who love and accept you, and just letting the people that don't, just letting them be, just let them go, let them
Yeah.
be, and, and move forward. Yeah.
And not try
Amazing.
to convince them. I think a lot of people try to explain it away and help them understand it. And people are only where they can be. And so often it's because of life circumstances. So a lot of people don't understand or even connect with mediumship till they've had major death. When they have major death and they're like, oh, okay, well, wait, now I'm desperate. Now I know what you're talking about. I don't even care if I believe it or not. I just want some evidence that I can feel better. Right. So I think a lot of times people just haven't gotten to the life experience to have the understanding, and that's not bad or wrong. There's nothing. It's just that they don't understand it. So if you don't know, you don't know.
Right. And a lot of mediums actually wake up to the spirit world
Exactly.
through those catalytic events like that. I mean, the loss of a loved one, even sometimes car accidents and things like, illnesses, all those
Diagnosis and disease, for
diagnoses of
sure.
disease, right? All of a sudden they become seekers, and they start looking, and then they realize that, oh my gosh, something that they just didn't even realize was spirit communication, realize that now that has actually been their loved ones communicating the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing,
Got it.
amazing. So, Sunny, of course, we're coming up. I want to honor, of course, our time, and there's a couple of really important questions that I do really would like to ask you and to bring your wisdom to. And one of them is what guidance do you have for mediums who are hesitant in not just going and doing readings for other people, but hesitant in accepting this part of themselves, holding back, denying, suppressing. I know, as you said, you used to push away spirit all the time. I know I certainly did. I refused to be their messenger. I didn't want to do this. It's not going to be me. Like I said, I was not that person in high school who said that this was going to be my career highlight. Like this was,
Right.
I did
I
not,
don't think
I
anybody
did,
was.
I
I don't
don't
think
think
anybody
so,
ever
right?
said when they were a kid, I think I will be like somebody that nobody really likes and nobody believes and nobody wants. Like, I
Exactly.
don't think any of us signed up for that, right?
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, going back to my question is, what would you say to those mediums who are just hesitant in being able to open up to the spirit world, hesitant about embracing their gifts, regardless of what it means for them in moving forward?
Well, it's an answer I don't think many people like, but I'll say it anyway because I'm on the edge. I'm always
Yeah.
risky.
Uh-huh.
That is, spirit always wins. So you can push against, and you can push against, and you can push against, and you can push against. And a lot of times it starts to make you sick. It breaks your system down until you actually surrender into the truth. And I'm not saying that it has to look a particular way, but you surrender into the truth of what actually is being revealed or being expressed within you. Because when you are in denial of who you are, we mask it with other things. And those other things aren't real. And so we're not living in our authenticity. And that's how we get sick. And so the sickness we could blame on the fact that, oh, well, this happens, or I was the 17th in line for this or whatever. But the reality of it is, when you are not in alignment with the truth of who you are blocking energy that then gets stored in other ways that aren't healthy. And so what I know to absolutely 100% be true, and I share this in my mediumship classes and all of the training that I do for people, is spirit wins, period. And you have a million different paths you can go. And of course, initially, it's normal to have resistance. But when you feel and know something is true, even though you don't like it, that's your ego. You got to drop in and surrender into what I use the term trusting the process. If you can trust the process that, okay, there's a reason why this is showing up, and I might not like it. I might not know how to do it. I might not know what it's going to look like. But for me, I've created a very successful career in the exact work that I never would have signed up for.
Right.
And helped thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people over 23 years doing this exact work that I never would have signed up for. So the blessing and the trusting the process, once I could get over myself, was so much greater than I ever could have imagined when I was in my fear.
Mm. I just love that so much because it's like spirit always wins. And that's where, again, we can, for as long as we want to try to avoid it, eventually it comes to be. One of the things we talked about, this is many, many years ago, I'm sure on another interview we had done, or even another just conversation we had, was where you had said that when we start kind of falling into fear, when we start getting nervous, when we start having the anxiety and pulling away and not wanting to show up, and you said, regardless of what we're going through, when you're nervous, focus on service. And that has been a mantra, like I could not tell you. I teach that to my students. I share that over and over. And of course, give credit to you for that, because it is true. It's like, regardless of whatever's coming up and those fears associated with it, it is about the service, because of the thousands, like you said, the hundreds of thousands of people that have been helped through this modality, whose lives have been transformed, and that becomes the main focus. And I know for myself, after you said that, when I would go into my client sessions, that's all that mattered. What happened in those client sessions was all that mattered to me. It was no longer about what other people, whether they'd like me or didn't like me, whether they understood or they didn't understand. It became, my focus was on the service, because what was happening were the very things that miracles are made of, and there's just no denying it anymore. And that was such a helpful line to me. I mean, that was, many years ago, and I don't even remember the context in which you said it, but it's been something that I've really held on to.
Yeah, and I still live that way as well. I mean, I can have human stuff going on, my own life stuff going on, and the world stuff going on, and then when it's time to get present and drop in, I can show up in service, because that's innately who I am.
Yeah.
Right? All this other stuff, yes, that's busyness and it's things to do, and the humanness and the fun and all the things. But the reality of it is that the bigger part of me is I'm service oriented person. And so I'm always going to serve. And whether it's through those modalities, or whether it's I see a car accident and I run into it, or there's a fire going, I'm a server, like I'm going to be in it. And so if you know that about yourself, when you get into service, all the bullshit falls away for that hour or that time, whatever that happens to be.
Yeah, so powerful, so powerful. Now, Sunny, this event, as a lot, of course, is in helping to inspire and nurture mediums, and really giving a platform to begin to change the minds and hearts around mediumship. And so I just appreciate, of course, your wisdom coming forward. But there's a lot of people who are also participating in this event, who are grieving, who are seeking, and who are considering looking, as we said, it's not until we experience death that sometimes we begin to look for some of these answers and the help that mediums have to offer. But what advice do you have, or insight can you provide for those individuals who are grieving a loss? What do you have to share for them?
I think probably one of the best messages that I've received from Spirit, it was when I was writing my book, The Love Never Ends. So this was 10 years ago. It was in 2014. And that book is all about connecting with the spirit world and your animals and people and all of that. And after I had finished writing the whole book, the book was done. I was doing the red lines on it, just editing a few pages. And I had gotten in the tub in the middle of the afternoon. And this message came to me while I was in the tub, and I jumped out of the tub and I ran to my desk and I wrote it down. And I think it's really profound. And I have no ownership over it. I just wrote it. Was in order to experience their presence, you must focus on their presence. When you focus on their absence, you experience their absence. So in order to experience your loved one, focus on their presence, because in focusing on their presence, you become aware of the presence. In focusing on the absence, you become aware of the absence. And whichever you focus on gets bigger. And we all know that. We, as mediums, we know that that's very, very true. And so focus on the presence to experience more presence.
Mm. That is beautiful. Oh my gosh, I really, really love that. Thank you so much. And you're right, it's the absence that, as we begin to focus on that, the longing, the hurt, everything really just perpetuates. And so we need to, yeah, need to expand that. Thank you. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Of course, we have some people joining in live here with us in our, as part of the event. I'm going to go over to the chat. If you guys have any questions for Sunny whatsoever, and just please go ahead and post them in there. We have a few minutes remaining, of course, of our time together. Sunny, one of the things I just, want to just thank you for is your generosity of spirit. You are without a doubt one of the people that are out there in this industry who are so gracious, so giving of yourself. When you say that you are of service, you absolutely are. I think this is one of the things that I have admired and have just felt so connected to you for, was because of the graciousness and the giving of your spirit. You truly are someone who not just talks all of this. There's an embodiment of service that moves through you, and I just want to thank you for that, because it really is what really has an amazing impact on the world, and the effect that you have, or the impact that you're having on people and the lives that you're touching without even realizing. Like you mentioned your book, The Love Never Ends. I actually include that as a part of curriculum in my level 2 program when people come in. So it's just such a powerful book, and it's so great for people to be able to hear those messages, to understand, and then now you come in and just so graciously share your wisdom here tonight. I just am so very appreciative of you.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's really important as people that are, I think I didn't consider myself this when it was happening, but certainly now that I'm older and have a lot of years under my belt, I recognize that I was really on the forefront of a way of being and a way of living that, there were really hard things and there were positive things. And I'm never one to sugarcoat shit. Like, hey, this is hard and it can be done, and it's super valuable, and you're going to have moments where you're like, I'm never doing this again, right? Like, so I think that one of the things that's really important to me, and I hope that all of you that are choosing to walk this journey in whatever form that is, whether it's just, mediumship for the people that are close to you, or whether it's getting out in the world and doing this as public as you feel called to, is that authenticity is critical. It is so important to be honest. I remember I was doing a TV show in 2014, and the producer of the TV show, the executive producer, really let me do the show exactly the way I wanted. Let me do my own hair and makeup. Let me dress the way really let me be me, because it wouldn't have worked otherwise. And when I did it, I had another producer there that was like, they didn't like the amount of time it was taking to get to where they wanted to get. And I told them, it takes the amount of time it takes. So I'm not going to push anything in. I'm not going to add anything. I'm not going to try and rush the process, because this is how it actually is. And the producer said, no, you know what? I just want you to just, he wanted to give me some preset information, and so that it would move it along. And I said, but you don't understand. There is no purpose in me doing that. For you, maybe, for the television audience, maybe, but not for me, not in my integrity. So I can either do this and do it the way I'm doing it, which actually ended up, after I backed him off, perfectly beautiful, exactly the way that happened. But you couldn't see that because it was slow and it was frustrating and all the things. And I told him, I said, I'm not, if it sucks or if I'm wrong, I will be wrong on television. I don't care, because the reality of it is, as mediums, sometimes we're wrong.
Sometimes we're wrong.
None of us are ever 100% ever. That's not a possibility. Sometimes the interpretation is off. Sometimes they don't remember something. Like those are real. So I would rather be real and be wrong, or real and be right, than ever pretend like I knew something I didn't know, or that I would have a suggestion that people might believe that things happen a certain way, because it's bullshit. It's not true. And so for me, and I hope for many of you, that authenticity piece is first and foremost in however it is you show up, because then people are going to be attracted to that. That's what people are attracted to. I think that's why my career has been so successful.
I was just going to say, I think that's what upholds it. In the authenticity is what upholds a lasting career in this way as well, too. Where they're, quote unquote, not selling our soul for any reason. We're staying in integrity. We're being true to what we're receiving, regardless. Here again, the pressures or the idealistic viewpoint of what this needs to look like. And there again, the universe won't hold up the energy of anything that is not authentic and that is not, that it'll bottom out. So I love that you brought that forward. We do have a question from someone tuning in here, from Cheryl. Hello, Cheryl. She says, hi, Sunny. She says, I'm a neighbor of yours and I work professionally as a spirit medium. And I wonder if you have any words of wisdom for us who work professionally in this business.
Oh, goodness.
It's a big question.
I have so many words of wisdom. Let me decide which wisdom I want to impart.
Right. You're a business mentor. So I mean, all of a sudden it's like, wow, like open up the floodgates on this one.
Yes, like, and I do mentor people in this realm because I always have so much. Like, I'm such a creative person. I have so many ideas for everybody. What I would say first and foremost is I really do think that the more in authenticity and integrity you are, you attract your people. And not all people are your people. And I think that's really important, because I think when you're starting a business or you're building a business, or you're growing a business, you're like, okay, I want more people. I want more clients. I want to make more money. I want to be out there more. I want to, touch as many hearts as I can, whatever. And I think what we have to really get into is, I want to make a difference. And in that making a difference, it might be a group of 8 people, or it could be a group of 80 people. But one of the things that I found is certainly people love readings. They absolutely love readings. And that's really powerful work. And it does a lot of healing. But I also think there's a lot for people to learn about mediumship. And I think teaching is one of the best ways to learn. And so for those of you that are out there that are, maybe you're doing readings all the time, one of the things I would suggest that you might want to consider, if you feel like you have the confidence or the space, and now that we have Zoom, we can do this anywhere, is use some of the things that you've learned and teach people how to do it for themselves. Not everybody is a medium for everybody else, but I absolutely believe everybody that has a heart connection with that person in spirit is a medium to that person, meaning they can connect to their own people. Because I think as mediums, that's what we're doing, is we're tapping into the energy that they have, right? It's not like we're just this random person that goes, okay, let me tune into this person. Like, we're tapping into that energetic connection. So if you have the ability to expand your offers to not just doing readings or small groups or classes or groups where you're, doing spot readings or something like that, but actually teaching basic tools, just basic things like, oh, and they come and visit you in a dream. And when you get this feeling, you have this subtle kind of this, or this knowing, that gives people tools that then they can learn to rely on themselves and not feel like they have to always go to somebody for the answer. And I know a lot of times mediums, because I teach a lot of mediumship classes, a lot of mediums are like, yeah, but that's going to put me out of business. And I disagree. I think that's going to expand your business.
I absolutely agree. I think I always say there's enough hurt people in the world for all of us. We don't need to be in competition with each other. No. And I love what you said. This is about empowering people, giving them the tools. And I remember, when I first started doing readings, it was like every third or fourth person coming in started to reveal to me for the first time. They're like, Bonnie, I'm a medium. Can you help me? How do you manage this? What advice do you have on, in regards to that? And teaching is such a powerful way to learn and understand how the spirit world communicates with you, but also there's such value in terms of helping everyone realize that they have this within them, that they are able to connect, and they actually don't need any of us. I said my greatest joy is when people don't need me anymore, because now they've been empowered, they can do it for themselves.
That's exactly why I teach. That's why
Yes.
I do so much mediumship training, is because I want people to learn tools for themselves so they don't need me. Because my greatest goal in life is for everybody to outgrow me.
Yes.
That's the goal. Outgrow me. That's great. Be more successful than I am. Be on television all over the world. Like, I don't want that. So I learned I don't want that. So outgrow me and do the things that you really, your spirit calls you to do. And the more that we empower people, that's always going to be a benefit to us. And I think sometimes, and I get it, because I know what it was like when I was first doing it and trying to make money and trying to make a living and take care of my family and wanting to hold on. But I don't believe in competition. I believe in connecting with each other. I believe in completing for each other, being certain aspects of it. I believe in coming together to support people. But I think the competitive energy is old, an old dynamic that does not belong in the realm that we are doing our work in. And unfortunately, there's way too many people that believe the opposite of that. And that
That's
might be on
exactly.
my soapbox. It has nothing to do with this class, but I'm just
No,
saying.
but it's like I want to high five you on that one, sister, because oh my gosh, that's exactly it. There is no room. I don't believe there's any room for competition in this work whatsoever. That this is about support. This is about community. This is about encouragement. And I one of the things I always teach people too is that sometimes we are just the medium that is being used for someone to get the help that they need. So be willing to make recommendations. You don't have to be the one to do the readings and do all this work for everyone else. If your calendar is full, if you are not feeling well, if you're just not up to it, find pass them forward. Offer some recommendations. Let people get the help. This isn't about us. This isn't about our success and whether we're, what level or how many readings we've done, or we need not about proving ourselves in the world. This is about how can we support and help people to get the help that they're seeking. That's what
Well,
matters the
and if I
most.
can add to that, Bonnie, I think this right here is a really good example, you guys. So um Bonnie came in as a I don't know if you were a student or you were reading my stuff or whatever it was. And then a colleague, like, she's doing the same work, and she'll reach out to me and say, hey, do you want to do this? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We don't have to get paid. It doesn't have to be something where there's an exchange of money. There's an exchange of energy in the support of supporting humanity. And you all right now are the humanity we're supporting. And so we're coming together. We don't live next to each other. We don't talk every day, but that's part of the purpose of these kinds of groups and what you're putting together, Bonnie. And I don't even know what you're putting together, but the idea is that, when we can complement each other, not compete, complement each other. And so there's aspects of mediumship that I have knowledge of that she might not have as much. And then there's aspects that Bonnie has that she's tapped into that I don't have as much. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. It doesn't matter any of that. So when you guys, all of you that are stepping into this, I would really get competition out and look for complementing. And you also have to be aware of who you're trying to complement with, because not everybody is on the same page. So Bonnie and I on the same page, we're not talking the same language. You're probably seeing that. But there are other people that they want to take and they want to just get your audience, or they want to. So you need to also be intuitive about how that feels and answer each one based on what it feels, not just well, yes, of course, I'm going to help every single person in the world. Because believe me, I've helped every single person in the world, and I've gotten screwed over a few times because that was I didn't know people were like that. Let's just put it that way.
That has happened to me too, and it shocks me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, apparently we don't play in the world in the same way. Okay.
And it's okay, and we
And it's
learn, and then we're
okay.
here to teach you guys so you guys don't have to do it, so you can move on from that.
Exactly. Such wonderful words of wisdom. All right, everyone. Well, Sunny, thank you again. This has been it's always so much fun to hang out with you and to share in these conversations. What you've brought to the table here this evening as a part of Medium's World, I'm just so grateful. And of course, thank you for the amazing work and being such a light in this world and making it possible for all the mediums that are out there to step forward as well. You were a part of the fringe, definitely, when you look back all those years ago, and you really have blazed a trail. So on behalf of everyone here, and I want to say on mediums around the globe, thank you so much for this beautiful work that you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you, Bonnie, for having a platform and inviting information for all of these people that are stepping into this and are finding their way to be able to have a path, because I didn't have a path, and it's difficult that way. And so it's really great when you can, you guys are getting steps ahead. You don't even know the time, energy, and money you are saving when you have somebody that's willing to take your hand and help support you and guide you and say, watch out for this bump, watch out for this roadblock, and things like that. It's helping you tremendously in your future work. So thank you for your work, my friend.
Oh my gosh, thank you so very much. And of course, to everyone who took time out to be with us here this evening, thank you so very much. And we will be joining back again tomorrow night when it's actually my birthday tomorrow, and we're doing a little online celebration. So I'm looking forward to spending time with everyone then. Again, God bless everybody. And until we meet again, Sunny, thank you so much for your time.
Sweetheart. Thanks, everyone.
All right.